I like beer, and I'm an ambassador for Timberland Pro. They recently teamed up with Sam Adams for a special collection and came up with a challenge. They challenged me to come up with something beer-proof, and I think I have an idea. With core values like work, tradition, and celebration, both Sam Adams and Timberland Pro are full believers in the work hard, play hard mentality. And sometimes, after a long day in the shop, I like to kick back and enjoy a beer here in our outdoor patio. And we like to entertain out here, but there's just not a lot of places to put things. And I think I want to fix that by making a fold-out bar that sits just below that TV. And then when we're not using it, it would fold back up out of the way, leaving this area clear. But here's the thing, I don't want it to look just like a fold-out shelf. That'd be boring. Instead, what I want is for when it's folded up, I want it to almost be kind of like a showcase piece here in the patio. Something that looks cool that you don't think is automatically just a fold-up shelf. Okay. So here's a plan. I'm thinking I'm gonna go with a sort of slat table. And for all of you woodworking aficionados out there, I want it to kind of look like a Nelson coffee table bench type design. Made so famous, in fact, that they named a wrestling move after it. But anyways, that's kind of what I want to go for. Now, because this project is going to be outside, though not directly in the sunlight or in the rain, it's still going to be exposed to the outdoors. I wanted to make it from a material that would do well outside. My first thought was to make the whole thing from cedar. And when I told my wife about it, she says, "Is that what that redneck furniture is made out of?" To which I said, yes. So obviously that got thrown out, which honestly might be for the best because cedar is so soft, I don't know how well it's gonna hold up as a tabletop. So my next choice is hickory. Hickory is a pretty bland looking wood. It's supposed to do pretty well outside, and it's a lot harder than cedar. Hey everybody, Travis here from the future. I just wanted to stop and say that hickory is in fact a terrible choice for outdoor furniture. Not sure where I read that. I'm gonna blame it on 3 kids, 2 jobs, and complete lack of sleep, but somehow fluff that up. I did reach out to my buddy John at Lincoln Street Woodworks. If I wanna build something for outside, hickory is probably at the top of your list for recommended woods, right? Oh, I had my list upside down. It's at the bottom of the list. Yeah, no, I'm not very good at this. Who said it should be okay, just as long as it's not in the rain or in the sun directly, which it's not, so I'm just gonna proceed forward. But if you're gonna do a project like this, I maybe would consider a different wood. Anyways, let's get back to it. Now, as many of you know, I am a certified idiot when it comes to woodworking. So I bought all of my lumber pretty much pre-finished, which means it was super cheap. And because of that, I don't have to do a lot of milling on the front end, but obviously if you have this equipment, this would be a great place to go buy some rough sawn or half rough sawn lumber and make your own dimensional lumber. Now, I've also got a couple of cool details I want to add to this thing at the end, but we're gonna wait till we get there because I gotta make sure I can build the damn thing first. So the basic construction of this thing is just a bunch of half-lap joints, and I'm starting by cutting my parts down to their rough size. Jigs and fixtures like the stop block make this extremely repeatable, which is important for this build. I'm cutting everything a bit long, knowing that I'm going to trim to the final size later. Now throwing in the dado stack on the table saw and tuning it for my material width. In this case, about 3/4 of an inch. So now that everything is cut to length, I can get to putting all those half-lap joints in. Now you can make a jig or you can buy one off the shelf. I chose to buy an Incra iBox jig. It's super easy to use, but it does take a little bit on the front end to get it set up and calibrated for whatever you're specifically cutting. I'd like to say that I nailed it pretty quickly, but it took several attempts with a lot of bad fits until I finally got to that good fit. So take your time during this step, it's gonna pay off in the end. Now that I'm at that point, I can just take all my pieces, run them through the jig, and everything should fit perfect.
Everything should fit perfect.
I'm gonna start by cutting the joints on the ends of the long pieces, and I've kind of MacGyvered the iBox jig to do this with a couple of clamps acting as a stop and a hold down. Again, I'm cutting these grooves a tad big to allow for the ends to get cut off or sanded later. Now onto the 4 vertical pieces that have all of the slots cut in them. This is where this jig really shines and made really quick work of these parts. Same story here, there's some extra stock at each end that we'll clean up later. Welcome back to the whimsical woodworking world of woes. I'll be your tour guide, Travis. You may be looking at this and saying, why are there 2 piles of the long runners of your table? Well, let me tell you. One reason why you may not want to use dimensional lumber, like I did, is that turns out dimensional lumber are different sizes. Cool. This one on this side fit perfectly and must have been what I tuned my slot width for. This side are a little thicker, so they don't go together. Now it's not off by a ton, so if I had like a planer or even like a drum sander, I could run these through and get them down to the same thickness as this, but I don't have either one of those things, so I think I just have to sand the crap out of them. But anyway, just one more reason to probably just make your own dimensional lumber rather than buying your own and relying on the fact that it's all the same size, because it's not. Finally cutting the middle slots and the long pieces using my cool high-low fence on my Laguna F2 table saw as a stop. And now trimming off some of that excess on the vertical pieces. And then to finish off the joinery, we're cutting the larger half-lap joints on the perimeter boards. You'll see that I'm using 1x4 material for the skirt, so I went old school and took multiple passes with my regular table saw blade set at the correct height. Now, I'd be lying if I said that all went together super smooth, everything fit perfect, and I could just move right onto the glue up. There was quite a bit of, we'll call it persuasion. With all of the different half-lap joints, I made a measurement error, a very, very tiny measurement error, but something like this, measurement error stack up is a huge deal. So just keep that in mind if you're gonna do this, just be ultra precise and be really repeatable. Repeatability was my problem. Anyway, we're finally at the glue up stage, which is probably the most nerve-wracking part of this entire thing because there are so many glue joints. And I know based on the dry fit of my particular build, some of it doesn't go together super easy. So I'm hoping this goes smooth. I'm just gonna show a time lapse here because I'm not gonna have time to move the camera or talk or anything, so here goes nothing. And while I'm nervously doing that glue up, let me tell you about this cool partnership between Timberland Pro and Sam Adams. Check out these direct attach work boots. These are the iconic Timberland Pro yellow with some blue accents from Sam Adams, and they are, of course, beer proof. They've even got a handy little bottle opener here. In addition to that, they've got t-shirts. You've seen me wear this during the entire build. And also this hoodie, which is actually really lightweight and comfortable and is also beer proof. And check out this really cool wrapped mini fridge. Now Timberland Pro and Sam Adams are both dedicated to top quality, so everything in this collection meets those standards. Check the link down in the video description below to learn more. Maybe that little piece popping off was an omen, because right about now, panic at the glue up started to set in. For whatever reason, this long skirt wasn't fitting like it did during the dry fit. As my pulse continued to elevate, I thought maybe I had it backwards. Then I thought, maybe I'll use a little clamp persuasion to get things lined up. I went ahead and jumped over to the other side thinking, hey, at least let's get this side done. And luckily that one fit as expected. Now with the glue dry, I knew I had some sanding ahead of me, but first I wanted to try and fill some of these bigger gaps with some glue and sawdust paste. Nothing like hiding your mistakes, right? The road was not always smooth, but it doesn't matter how you got here. The fact is that we're here. We're ready for finish and the finishing touches. The first finishing touch I've actually already cut in, which is going to be a recessed outlet I'm putting on the side for things like a speaker or a blender or something like that. Making that cutout was a tad nerve-wracking after I spent all this time getting this thing put together, but it actually went pretty smooth. I had to actually notch out some of these runners over here to make room for the outlet. I started with a chisel and then I ended with a router, which was the way to go from the beginning. But either way, it fits, looks good. And the next detail is actually a metal sign I'm gonna mount right on the face of this thing. It's got our last name, Lathrop, in it. It's a black metal sign that we've just had from our previous house. All I did was drill a couple holes in it where it intersects these runners, gave it a fresh coat of black paint, and then we'll mount this on after we apply the finish. And then the final detail, which I'll add at the end, will be some LED lights in the back so that when it's shut, you get hopefully kind of a cool glow around this thing at night, just because. But before we do any of that, we need to apply our finish. For that, I'm gonna use spar urethane in a semi-gloss. I don't actually wanna tint this thing. I like the look of the natural hickory.
I don't actually want to tint this thing.
I think it's gonna pop on that green wall. And I think I'm gonna end up doing 2 or probably 3 coats just to be safe. Fun fact, oil-based spar urethane will absolutely tint your wood regardless of the clear label on the can. So the good news is that it's waterproof. Some might say beer-proof. The bad news is that it looks like a canoe. Gotta say, I'm not digging the yellow tint. Right after I finished, I went to the Google machine and typed in oil-based spar urethane. And wouldn't you know it, the first result. Cool. Maybe I'll refinish it in the future, but for now, let's go get it installed. And with that, the beer-proof fold-out bar is now complete. I think this is gonna go a long way in letting us entertain out here, being able to set stuff on here, and then when we're not using it, folds up and it actually looks pretty cool up against the wall. And plus, when it is folded up, you've got party mode. Now I know this is gonna look a lot better when it's dark out, but even in the light, it's kind of a cool effect. Big thanks to Timberland Pro for being my footwear and apparel sponsor. Be sure to use that link down in the video description below. I will catch you guys on the next project, and until then, keep pursuing shop greatness.